Good evening, all, or indeed afternoon to our neighbours across the Atlantic. To this, the sixth session in the Portershed series of Irish Voices Global Perspectives, where we hear from Irish people who have really had impact in their respective roles and careers on a global footing. My name is Deery, and I'm delighted to introduce Seamus Kavanagh. This episode is entitled From Downtown Swinford to the Magnificent Mile and Beyond, but from research it should have been called 19 Different Houses in 22 Years. We'll come to that after, but it gives a real sense of your career, Seamus, and by virtue, that journey your family took along with your career. Seamus is Vice President of Business Development at Hollister Incorporated, along with many other titles which we'll come to. Welcome, Seamus.
Hi, Kenny. How are you? Great to see you. That is the quietest I've ever seen you when you were waiting for everyone to link in. I didn't think it was possible, but well done.
Don't worry, it doesn't normally happen. So though you normally reside in the beautiful location called Libertyville in Chicago, Seamus is speaking to us from the Sunshine State, where he's been residing for the last couple of months. To come to an end tomorrow, Seamus, talk to us about that for a moment.
First of all, hello to everyone that's taken the time to connect. You all must be totally bored with this COVID that you're interested in my story, but hopefully you'll get something out of it. Yes, Kenny, we've been lucky. Myself and Nuala, my wife, have been very lucky that we've been able to come down here to Florida. We've been here for the last 4 months. We rented a condo in the Naples area, and it's been fantastic. It's sunshine all the time. It's like 31 degrees C right now, and we were basking in the sun every day since we came down here, and it's been absolutely brilliant. If you didn't see people with masks here, you'd never know there was a pandemic going on. It's unbelievable because people are eating out and everything, and it's fantastic.
We're not at all jealous as I'm looking out the window and the rain has just started coming down. Listen, we're going to segue back and forward in your career, but I think just to bring people from a point of view of Hollister, it has manufacturing and distribution centres on 3 continents and sells to some 80 countries. At a high level, just to give people an understanding, what does Hollister do?
Hollister is a very unique company, and I'm privileged to work for them, and I have worked for them for the last 24 years. They're a global company. They're a privately held company, employee owned, and it operates in about 80 countries, has about 5,000 employees. The businesses that we operate in are mainly ostomy. So if you have colon cancer and end up with a stoma bag, as we call it, we're one of the main suppliers of those. Also catheters, intermittent catheters. So a lot of people that are that have spinal cord injury can't void their bladders properly. So have to use intermittent catheters. We produce those as well. And then we have another part of the business that delivers all of these products, not only our own products, but competitive products to the customers all over Europe and here in the US. So it's a very diverse company, very innovative. It was recognized in the top 5 innovative companies in Chicago for the last few years. And it's a great company to work for. We set up manufacturing operations in Kavanagh, County Mayo, back in 1976, and I've been there and employ something like 1,000 people there.
Wow. Fantastic impact, and obviously critically important products in the healthcare industry. And I think we'll come back to that after a while in terms of your own career and how it has evolved and the different roles you've held there. Now, one thing that's important, and for context, it's important to note, and he mentioned her already, but Seamus has the privilege of being married to Nuala, a proud Galway lady who's an alumni of GMIT, and we're going to hear a bit about INUI Galway in a moment. But GMIT, it's a source of many great debates. And I think connected to that, there's a great sense of pride between Seamus and Nuala of Mayo and the Mayo diaspora. And it's opportune that we're talking, and don't worry to the Galwegians who are thinking they're going to go on about Mayo. We won't spend the hour talking about it, but diaspora is important. And this weekend, is the whole Mayo Day celebrations are kicking off this evening. But from your perspective, Seamus, and I think in particularly with the US, how important is the diaspora piece? And listen, we joke about Mayo Galway, it's the west of Ireland. From a point of view of life in America now, and as it has been, how important is diaspora for those now who are watching this and thinking, God, I think I'm about to go somewhere? How do they leverage and add to that network?
Yeah, we, myself and Nuala, so I've been married to Nuala now for 33 years. She's from Newcastle, Galway, Newcastle Park in Galway. She's very actively involved in promoting Galway also. She's involved in the sister cities with Chicago and runs a lot of programs, as you know, Kenny, with Galway, and that's fantastic. The Irish connection is really important, and it's very important to us. Nuala and I have lived in about 6 different countries, lived and worked in about 6 different countries. And every time we go there, we try and connect with the Irish. Obviously, it's much, much easier to do that now with social media and whatever. But it's really important. I mean, the Irish always find the Irish always help the Irish. And that's the way it should be. And it's been really important to us. There's a great a connection there in Chicago. We have the Irish Network there that run events and provide funding to charity. We have people like Billy Lawless that's heavily involved in promoting the Irish community over here. Billy's from Galway, as most of you know. And then we have an NUI grad, Paul, that's working in the Irish Community Services in Chicago. And it's really good. So yeah, the Irish connection is important, and everywhere we go, we try and connect.
Very good, and I'm sure that'll feature as we talk through the conversation. I want to go back to, I suppose, to the beginning in many ways, and I want to go back to Swinford. Talk to us about, I suppose, those earlier years, what school was like, and I suppose what motivated your earlier decisions in terms of UCG at the time, the course that you chose, and so on.
And I always laugh about Swinford because I recall when I was about 16 years old, I couldn't wait to get out of it. And now I can't wait to go back into it every time I go back. It's just got a fantastic attraction. So yeah, I grew up in Swinford, went to secondary school in Swinford, St. Pat's College. It's now amalgamated with the girls' school at St. Mary's College. And I quickly realized in there that I wanted to go on to college. And I was very lucky to get a placement in NUIG, or sorry, UCG at the time. This was 1978, and I headed off with my black bag of clothes on my bicycle and headed off up to Galway. I recycled that black bag many times when I came back to visit my dear mother and my father with all my washing and whatever. But Galway, NUIG at that time, it's NUIG now, at that time was a fantastic college, and still is. I mean, back then it was like 4,000 students. They had about three restaurants on the whole campus, and it was just a fantastic place to be. Right now, NUIG has really transformed. There's about 20,000 students there. It's ranked in the top 2% of universities worldwide, and it's fantastic. I got involved with them through Jimmy Brown, the previous president, and Tom Joyce in the foundation, and now we have Kieran leading up the college NUIG, and it's just great leadership to have and to promote the place. So yeah, 1978, packed my bags, packed my bag, went off to Galway, went into First Science. I was lucky enough to have the option to continue on and focus on chemistry. So I did an honours degree in chemistry. So in 1982, I graduated with an honours degree in chemistry, which was great. So then I said, okay, no money, let's apply for some jobs. So I applied for a few jobs and got offered a job in Guinness at the time. And I was saying, okay, you know, there was 2 things, I guess. One thing was, it was the only time I ever had a physical examination where I had to drop my pants and cough, if you know what I mean, while someone else held on to my jewels. And I said, well, okay, I'm not so sure I like this. And the second thing was, this was 1982. Unemployment rates were like 16, 17%. Income tax rates were like 65% at the time. So total deductions were about 70%. And the job that I was offered was in Dublin, and I was offered £9,000 of salary. At the same time, I got offered a scholarship, 2 scholarships to go back and do a PhD. And when I did the maths, it really made sense. I was 21 at the time and said, okay, another 3 years, maybe 4 at worst, and I'll have a PhD, so why not do it? So it wasn't something that I sat down and contemplated and thought about doing a PhD. It just kind of fell that way, and I took the opportunity, and it just made sense. So I went back and did a PhD in organic chemistry, under a supervisor, Professor Pat McCardle, and he was really helpful. And I finished that PhD in 3 years, so graduated in 1985. And at that time, again, unemployment was quite high in Ireland, and I was lucky enough to get offered a job in the Netherlands with Dow Chemical. Dow Chemical is a big company, big global company based out of the US here. So it was a fantastic opportunity for me. I remember writing up my PhD thesis, handing it in on the Sunday in Dublin, and mailing it in Dublin, and arriving into work Monday morning in the Netherlands. So no time for break.
What a change that must be. So we cycled from Swinford to Galway, and then all of a sudden we're transitioning onto the Netherlands. Can I ask just one or two questions? Why science? Because I'm always intrigued when people pick courses, and it's obviously the evolution now. There's so much more thought goes into career guidance, and there's a whole multiplicity of signposts to help you. But then what was the motivation in science? Because clearly it's a decision that has had a profound impact on your life thereafter.
Yeah. I guess 2 things, Kenny. One is I felt I was good at science and maths, and I really liked it. When it came to geography or history, it just wasn't my thing. So I knew arts wasn't something that I was into. So I liked it. I did well in my Leaving Cert. And the other thing is, and this is a common thing, is our science teacher at the time was a real cool guy that we all liked and got on a lot with. And for that reason, I decided to go down the science route. And I think it was a good choice at the time.
Absolutely, it just shows how people can be mentors without knowing it or realizing it themselves, and having a profound impact. And come back to the Netherlands. So was it Amsterdam, The Hague? Where did you land, and how did that?
Yeah, it was in the south part of the Netherlands. It was nearly in Belgium, a place called Terneuzen in Zeeuws-Vlaanderen, for anyone that knows that area. A town of about 50,000 people. The site that Dow Chemical had at the time, there was about 5,000 people working on the site. So this was an enormous undertaking. They used to take in gas and crack it, and naphtha and whatever, and crack it and produce all these polymers. And I started off in the polyurethanes research and development group. This was 1985. So again, a bit of history. Back then, all the blowing agents, so these are all foams. So you had 2 components, and you had a blowing agent, and that blowing agent was CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. And in 1985, just when I took the job in Dow Chemical, the whole ozone hole was noticed. Just around that time. So the big task at that was a major threat to Dow's business at the time. And so a lot of us were hired, and we had to reformulate a lot of the polyurethane formulations to get away from CFCs, the greenhouse gases, to something benign like water. So that's what I did. Went in there as a research chemist, worked in the polyurethanes group for 5 years, and had a wonderful time in Holland. It's a fantastic country, and a great country to work in and live in. Got the opportunity then as part of that to transfer with Dow Chemical over to the US. So the Dow Chemical had just bought another company called Upjohn, and they had very good urethane chemistry, and Dow were building a new plant in Germany. So they sent a bunch of us over to the US to transfer the technology from the US to Germany. So myself and Nuala headed over there for 2 years. Nuala also worked for Dow Chemical, both in the Netherlands and in the US. And we had a ball of a time. Like, we were, maybe 29 at the time, no kids. The company was paying for our apartment, our car. We were in Texas. I mean, it was just super, super time that we had. And we were there with a whole bunch of German engineers. And it was just great. So we were there for 2 years, and our task was to transfer the technology back to Germany. So the northern part of Germany, Stade, a place just north of Hamburg. And that's what we did. And again, we transferred back to Germany. We lived there for about 2 years. And really, at that time, the whole Celtic Tiger was beginning to roar. And I was very anxious to get back to Ireland at the time. And I kept saying to Nuala, look, if we don't take the chance now, we'll never take the chance. And we left Dow Chemical. I think I took a 50% pay cut at the time to come back to Ireland. And I worked for an Irish company that had just bought out the Irish Ropes organization. And we moved back to Dublin for a while. Then moved to Naas, and did that for I think 3 years. So yeah.
And talk to us about culture is important, and I think then maybe it wasn't as in vogue as it is now, and we appreciate the differences. So you track from the Netherlands to Texas with German colleagues, back to Germany, and then back to Dublin.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of, even from language barrier, practical pieces, lifestyle, how you navigated the different cultures, or was it a thing at the time?
Oh, it was, absolutely, and it will always be a thing, particularly when there's a language involved, because it's more difficult to understand the culture. So when we moved to the Netherlands, again, Dow Chemical were very supportive. They sent Nuala and myself on Berlitz language courses. I came back with Pidgin Dutch. Nuala came back fluent. Now we worked on the course. We worked on the course together, but yeah, she just took to us fantastically, and still is able to speak Dutch. I worked in a building with 8 different nationalities, and so it was very difficult to speak Dutch. Even though I tried, I played soccer there with the team, and that's the only time I could. The only 2 times I could speak Dutch was with the soccer team and with my neighbor's kids. And so I used to watch Sesame Street in Dutch just to learn. So Nuala used to have a great laugh at this. But anyway, it was much more difficult to learn the language for me in Holland, because the Dutch people are so fluent in all different languages. And if you try and speak Dutch with most of them, unless your Dutch is excellent, they'll just speak back to you in English. In Germany, it was much different. The Germans want you to speak German. So my German ended up being much better than Nuala's at the time. I spoke it all the time in a work. And I think really, if you really want to appreciate a culture, you really have to speak the language and modify your style to their style. And that's what we did, and we really enjoyed it.
Very good. And one of the things I'm conscious of as you're moving from location to location, you're still doing your obvious core qualification, the chemistry work, bringing that to it. Had you got your first forays into management levels through some of those postings, or did that come later? How did that transition take place?
Yeah, initially when I moved over, obviously I was an individual contributor, and so did a lot of the work myself. But then as you progress through your career, you get different levels, starting off maybe with the technician reporting to you, and then a group and whatever else. So yeah, it had started once I was with Dow Chemical, but really took off then when I moved back to Ireland.
Mhm. So bring us through Ireland, because if I remember rightly, looking at the bio, there was forays in Galway, Dublin, Naas, and Mullingar, and indeed Ballina. So give us a sense, and there was one or two segues back to continental Europe as well. Talk us through a little bit of that, and I suppose how that developed, and also in tandem with the family coming along as well.
Yeah, you get the sense that the grass doesn't grow too much under our feet, for sure. Nuala reminded me just before this call that we had been in, was it 19 homes or 22 homes in 19 years or something like that, which is true. Our daughter, actually, Niamh, who's now 30, she was in 9 countries before she was 1 year old, either passing through or visiting. So yeah, we like traveling quite a bit, but it's something I'd encourage people to do. It's not for everyone, and we like it. So we got to we got to Germany, and then I decided to move back to Ireland, and I moved to a company that had taken over the Irish Ropes organization in Newbridge. So we ended up living in Naas for a number of years, but I traveled an awful lot at that time, and I was gone Monday to Friday, and used to come back on Friday and back again on Monday. And I spent a lot of time in Belgium as well. During that time, we actually moved to Belgium for a few months as well. So that explains the Naas connection. Did that for a few years. When I joined that group, there was 3,000 employees in the entire organization. But at the time I left, and this is not because of me, it was just what was happening. There was only 1,000 people in the organization. So, I imagine a lot of the listeners have gone through a similar experience, and it's not an experience I'd like to relive. I mean, it's awful when 3,000 down to 1,000, and some of the people you're talking about, they're not going to be in that role in a month or 2 months. It's not a great place to be. So I ended up leaving that company after 3 years, and then joining a self-made millionaire entrepreneur in the Midlands that had set up a company to extrude plastic for use in signage and reusable packaging. And that was an experience on itself. I mean, he had his, he was a workaholic, but he also had some other issues. The poor man is dead now, but he had been extremely successful in previous businesses. And I just realized, after it, look, the job I had was general manager to set up the whole plant, hire the people, train them on the operations and whatever. It was the most exciting job I could ever have. It was brilliant, but it was starting from scratch. Now, thankfully, he had the banking of the bank and all of that, so I didn't have to worry about that, except to take the calls from the bank to explain to them how the business was going. But I learned an awful lot. In fact, I think it was the best MBA course I ever did, because, I used to get on the phone, get the sales, run down, get the machines cranked up, produce all the product. And I remember the first 40-foot truck passing out of our compound, and I was standing inside the office looking out, and I said to the owner, I said, "Man, that's a great feeling. I feel great." And he says, "Seamus, wait till the money's in the bank." And I thought, that is a lesson. That is a lesson, and it's a lesson I carry to this day. But so I did that for a number of years, and for various reasons decided this wasn't for me long term, and then got approached about a position in Hollister. And I wasn't that keen at the time to move back to the West, particularly Ballina. But it was a fantastic move. Here I am 24 years later. The job at the time was to go into Hollister and set up an R&D product development facility in the plant. And that was a great opportunity for me, and I took it gladly. And I'm in the Hollister organization since then.
Yeah, and we'll go through. I'm interested in the roles and moving into the global roles. And I think actually you're talking about the truck leaving the park and that sense of achievement. Many of those listening and watching are either in business developing their own product, they're going through validation, they're looking at, their first customers and achieving it. And I think they'll certainly get that sense of achievement, but equally the sage advice: wait until the money is in the bank.
Oh, that is for sure.
Um,
Follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. You talked about that experience being the best MBA you did, but you actually did do an MBA, and I think there's a coming back to the INUIG piece. Your bachelor's, your PhD, and your MBA were all INUIG, and I think you serve as a member of the INUIG Foundation Board in the US.
Yes.
The real richness in the connection to the university, but also one thing, and I know I'm jumping a little forward, and we'll go through the Hollister piece now, and particularly to your role now in terms of business development, which covers such a multitude. But you were honoured in 2013 with the prestigious Alumni Award for Science, and given the richness of your connection, how did you feel about that? And I suppose what were your reflections of that event and that particular award, and how it, I suppose, topped your INUI Galway association?
I was shocked and totally honoured. I couldn't believe it. It is one of the best accolades I've ever been given, and I'm truly grateful to NUIG. It was fantastic. It's NUIG, as I said, is rated in the top 2% of universities worldwide. It's been in Galway for 175 years. The amount, it's really integrated in the community. And, all I would say to people is just think about the scenario if NUIG wasn't there. Say if NUIG folded in the morning, the impact and the devastation that it would have on the whole area, not just Galway City itself, but Galway County, Mayo. I mean, it's just a fantastic institution to have. And they have some absolutely premier scientists and academics in that institution, and it's fantastic. And it's gone, from Jim's leadership to Kieran's leadership. It's gone from strength to strength. The MBA program is now accredited. It wasn't at the time I did it. A fantastic achievement, and it's integral to the community. And I think when you go there at first you don't appreciate it, but when you go back with different eyes, you have a whole different appreciation for the institution. Some of the research that's coming out of it in the medical device area and whatever is just second to none. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know from where I met yourself and Nuala, along with Liam O'Connor and Anna and many others, was the Society of Cleveland Ball, where NUIG have an arrangement with John Carroll University, supported by the society. But I remember you on stage talking with passion, representing the organisation on many an occasion. So no, don't doubt it was a very proud moment for Nuala, for the kids, and yourself as well. One question in, and folks, for those that are on the line, we are very much open to questions. So either put your question in the chat box or the Q&A function, and we'll begin the interactive piece now. One question that's in, Seamus, it's an interesting one. Was the 50% pay cut worth the move back to Ireland?
My wife is listening. She might say no, but we debated it for a long, long time. But yes, absolutely it was. Totally. She just IM'd me. No. No, I disagree with her. I think it was fantastic. One of the things that I was concerned about, apart from the economy and whatever else taken off, I was also concerned because I had seen families in Dow Chemical where you would talk to their kids and you'd say, well, where are you from? And they'd say, well, I was born in Switzerland, but I went to high school in Germany and I moved here. And I was on that same track with Dow Chemical, and I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted them to have some identity. If you ask I have three kids. Neve, who's 30 years old, she's a nurse, just moved to San Diego. She's been doing a Trojan work over the last while. She was in LA before this, where they had a lot of COVID cases, and she was looking after it. My son is married in Australia with his wife Elise. He works for Deloitte, and then my younger son is an engineer for AbbVie. If you were to ask any of those kids where you're from, they'll all say Ireland. Niamh was the only one that was actually born in the US. The other, Tomás and Kieran, were born in Ireland, and I wanted that, as did Nuala, for our kids, that they've some identity. So the 50% pay cut, yes, absolutely, it was well worth it. Hard to take, but well worth it. Now, I have to also say, at the time, I was getting paid German wages on German vacation, and I was paying Swiss taxes. So it was a big cut.
I hope there's nobody from a revenue look back unit on the call.
It's all above board. It's fine. It's fine. Yes, I mean, look, if you're going to take risks, my advice is take them when you've less to lose, and take them earlier in your career if you can at all. And I'm delighted I did it. We did it.
Very good. And sometimes risks, you know, not even a risk, but sometimes you find people take a lesser rank in careers to move sideways, but the value that gives them can really propel them to the next stage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in essence, that's what you did. So bring us through now. We are in Hollister, and I was looking at the different, you know, roles, and I think this is a really, let's say, for some of the companies that we work with through Portershed, through the Chamber, through a whole range of industry in the West, you have businesses trying to grow, build their product, some hoping to scale themselves and move on, some hoping to be acquired, some hoping somehow to position themselves that you know, they'll add value somewhere along the way. And I look at some of the roles that you've done, and I'd like to kind of dig a little into this within Hollister, but there's titles, and I have a notebook here because of like many titles, they're worthy. But Vice President Global Innovation and Technology Development, Global Product Development Manager, Global Marketing Director, VP of R&D, VP of Innovation and Technology Development, and VP of Business Development, which, as I say, is one of those roles now that you think is great, but there can be so much in it as where do you start? So kind of give us a sense of how you entered that company and obviously worked in Ballina initially, but then the move to the US, how big a thing was that, how that came about, and I suppose how you flourished there.
Yeah. So 1997 when I joined, August 1997 when I joined Hollister, and my task at that time was to set up an R&D product development organization in Ballina. And I remember like going in there and thinking, okay, how big could this thing get? And so we built offices for 6 people. They now have over 30 something engineer, R&D and engineer folks there. So I mean, it's gone way above my expectation. That's because of the leadership that's there now and the products they're developing. So at the beginning, when I set up the group, we were originally focused on developing ostomy products for the global market, and we did that successfully. But then the company, as part of their strategic plan, wanted to diversify the business into continence products, so catheters and urine bags and whatever else. And so they asked me to refocus the group in Ballina on the continence business, which was again a big challenge and a big risk for us all, because we were starting from scratch. We had some products, but it wasn't a strategic focus. So we took that challenge on, and we launched our first product in that continence business from that group in 2002, and that took off really well. And that whole business now, we're doing a few $100 million of revenue in that business alone. And a lot of the products now are being produced in Ballina, and they've grown tremendously. So yeah, that was the role in Ballina. And as part of that, then I gravitated more to a marketing role. And so an opportunity came for me to transfer to the US. I kind of maxed out in Ballina at that point in time. And an opportunity came up for me to transfer to the US headquarters. And I thought this was an interesting challenge. And we moved over in January 2004. And I took up the role of global director for the continence care business. So I was in charge of all the R&D and the marketing for that business to build that business up. did that for a few years, and then we had some challenges in the R&D organization, and I was asked to go in there, and went in there, ended up heading up the global R&D organization, which at the time was about 100 people globally, which was interesting. And then we realized we were having challenges in the innovation space. We were good on the we were relatively good on the execution part and delivering products, but it was the front end, as we call it, that we were challenged. And so I was asked to take that challenge on and try and build up this whole front end innovation, which we did. And I would say we have a very robust system right now, from initial idea to creating prototypes to getting it into a commercial marketing setup. So I did that for a number of years, and then took on this role of business development, head up the business development about maybe 5 years ago or so. And this is great. I mean, it's so exciting. I love doing it. It allows me to use a lot of my technical skills. It allows me to use my, financial acumen that I've got through my MBA, and just overall business acumen, and apply it to all these opportunities. We get opportunities. We had one opportunity, like a guy was creating a wound care product from the forestomach of a sheep in New Zealand, and we got involved in that. That company is now since IPO'd and is doing very well. We're working with companies all over the place. So on a daily basis, I would be talking to people anywhere from New Zealand to Denmark to Ireland to the US, and it's fantastic. And it's you meet a lot of interesting people. You meet people that have a great idea and they want to run with it and don't have funding. And then you meet other more mature companies that have a revenue stream, and you're evaluating them as to the value to acquiring them. So it's really interesting. I love it. It's when you work for a big company, you forget the challenges. Sometimes you forget the challenges that the smaller companies have, and they're worried about where the next paycheck, if they even get a paycheck, comes from. And it's a really challenging. I've been lucky. I can do this kind of thing in a corporate environment. I really commend the people that are on the phone and listening, that are doing it on their own. And it's a major undertaking.
It is, and I think there's so many questions out of that. And without giving away your secret sauce, what do you look for in a company? And I'm thinking particularly, is there something about the founders, the promoters?
Oh yeah.
Talk to us in terms of that, because I think that's really important. Sometimes you have people who are so ambitious and so eager, and they're go. But is that always the right approach? Let's say, what do you look for?
Yeah, I mean, we look for a number of things, but as Warren Buffett always says, don't do business with people you don't trust. So, and that is absolutely true. I mean, a lot comes down to the individual or the team. Hopefully it's a team that's involved. What are their motivations? Where do they want to be? How do they see it growing, and so on. Apart from that, we look for a strategic fit with our existing businesses, or if it's something separate. Is there intellectual property? Because we're in the medical device space, that's very, very important to us. Is there intellectual property involved? Are there any compliance issues, or because compliance is enormous, much bigger than it was a concern back in 1997 when I joined Hollister. A lot of the products we sell are reimbursed by insurance companies or government authorities like the HSE in Ireland. So we look to see, is this reimbursable? Is it a favorable reimbursement? Will we make a good margin? And then is it something that we can run standalone, or do we have to integrate? And how easy is it to integrate? So there's a multitude of things, but the door closes if you're dealing with someone that you can't trust or has unrealistic expectations. And that's the problem we come across, or the challenge we come across a lot of times, because people come up with brilliant ideas, fantastic ideas, but at the end of the day, are they commercial? Can you commercialize them? Can you make money out of it? And to be honest with you, some of the universities are some of the most difficult organizations to work with, because, you know, they think creating the ideas is the first thing, but that's commendable, but it's not commercializable. And it's, you know, you have to be able to make money. And so there's a lot of things that goes into the evaluation. I mean, our due diligence process, we typically don't invest in early stage companies because there's too high a risk. Anything can go wrong. So we tend to prefer companies that have some sort of a revenue stream, and the level of due diligence that we go through is just enormous. And thankfully, we have some brilliant subject matter experts all around the organization that I can pull into these evaluations.
Brilliant. And let's say there was a time pre-COVID when you could hop on a plane, go to a location, touch down, have a bite of food, have a drink, get a sense of people, to get a sense of that trust. How do you do that in an environment where we're looking at each other on a screen?
Teams and Zoom. I would typically do pre-COVID, like maybe 10 international trips a year or whatever. I have only been on a plane once in the last 15 months. And that was just to go from here, Naples, Florida, to New Orleans on a business trip, not for fun. But it's completely different. But thankfully, with all this technology, we use Teams. You know, it's very doable. You can still get a very good sense. Now, you still have to meet the people in person, and that's okay. I remember when back in about 2000 in Ballina, we were saying, look, Ballina is so remote. We need to make it easier and more accessible. So we decided to put in video conferencing technology. We put it in, and within, I think, 6 months, we were taking it back out again, because at that time, if you wanted more than 2 people to participate, 2 sites to participate, you had to engage a bridging company, and it was so expensive. And look at us now. This is brilliant. I'm looking like there's 39 people on this call, and they're all coming in from all different areas, and it's absolutely brilliant. It makes my job a lot easier, that's for sure.
Brilliant. You brought me back to a memory in AIB where we had 3 branches at one stage before teleconferencing, and we had 2 phone lines open, dialed each respective number, and it was a cross call between the different units. To say it was a difficult call to coordinate was an understatement. There's more questions. There's some questions coming in, and one, Seamus, has gone back to your education, and it's how important do you think the PhD and the MBA was to your career and the development, and I suppose the credibility that it brought you to potentially, or did that make a difference? Would you still have got there without?
Would I still? Look, I think the the PhD was fantastic for me personally. I was 21 years old. I had an opportunity to do this, and it's something then that you have, and you know, I think it just shows a level of commitment and competence to other people. It's not the PhD. It's just the commitment that you pick an area of research, and then you do all the research, and you publish stuff that people find of value to the academic world, and that's fine. So it shows that level of competence and commitment that I think is really important in any job that you do. I think the MBA for me, but the negative to it was it took me a long time to break out of the technical mold, because and a lot of that was my own fault. I gravitate a lot to the technical side because I understand it. It makes me tick. And it took me a long time to break out of that technical role. And even when I did initially, I was still pulled back into it because, you know, people appreciated my opinion. And that's why I went back to do an MBA. Now, I went back to do an MBA in 2000 and finished it in 2002 in NUIG. And the reason I left it so late is, you know, family. We had 3 young kids and whatever else. And I couldn't have picked a worse time to do the MBA. We had 3 young kids. We lived in Ballina. To get from Ballina to Dublin Airport at that time took 4 hours drive. And I was doing a lot of traveling. And we were building a house in Ballina. And I was also leading the biggest technical project at the time that Hollister had ever overtaken at that time. There's been plenty bigger since then. So I mean, and I was spending 1 week a month in the US. So I mean, it was just the wrong time to do it. But I'm telling you, there's never a wrong time to do an MBA. It was the best thing I did. Because you know, I I didn't have a good, well, I had no financial education. And with that, with the MBA, it gave me a really good fundamental understanding of finance and accounting, and also opened my eyes as to the other components within an organization that all need to fire. And so it helped me kind of get out of the pure technical role into a more, we'll say, business side of where I wanted to be. So I would say, yes, very important. What I have got there without it, I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't think it's a prerequisite to do something like I've done. I think you can do it without it, but certainly the MBA, if you can, I would encourage people to do it.
I'm thinking about the amount of discipline that you must have had to have at that time. Travel, logistics, poor transport infrastructure, children, and trying to study and do a thesis and do all that piece of work. Just what's your approach actually to your self-discipline to get through so much?
Well, that's one of the great things the MBA teaches you is time management. It is superb. You don't realize they're teaching you it, but you have so many projects to deliver on, and so you have the lectures. At that time, we used to have lectures all day Friday and half a day on Saturday, and then you'd work away in between with your team. We had a great team Mayo, that 4 guys from Mayo, and we all helped each other. But yeah, there was a lot of discipline. Every spare minute you had, you were reading something. Flying back from the US, I wouldn't sleep on the plane. I'd read, then I'd jump in the car, drive down to Galway, go straight into the lectures, arriving there about 1 o'clock, just after lunch, when everyone was coming back. And it was tough going. It was very tough going on Nuala, because she had to carry the burden of everything at home at that point in time. But yeah, well worth doing though. But if you can do it earlier in life, I'd suggest maybe that's a better choice.
Very good. And listen, I'm conscious of time. We're coming into the last 5-10 minutes, because I know Seamus has a hard stop at the end of the hour to go back to the day job. One question has come in, and it's about mentors. And let's say, so very much now the conversation is you need a good advisory board around you if you're developing a business. And I think you talked earlier about the team as opposed to the individual, but also in terms of your own career. Did you have mentors along the way? I know we talked about the teacher years ago being, I suppose, a role model in terms of the science. As you progress through more senior levels, to what extent have you used or played the mentor game, so to speak?
Yeah, and initially I possibly didn't appreciate the value of a mentor or a promoter, or whatever you want to call it. It's vitally important here in the US, much more important than I think in Europe or certainly in Ireland. I think in whatever context you can get that mentoring or advice, whether it's someone a superior in work that you can learn from, or whether it's someone outside of work, that's also good. I would absolutely encourage it. It's really important.
Very good. Now, there's a question in here from someone who clearly knows you. Seamus must have taken the job at Guinness for a while because he pours a mean pint, but still, he's better chemist than a bartender. And he goes, there's a couple of more lines, but the question at the end is, in terms of truly global brands, what are the components? Now, this is a loaded question, but what are the components of a successful global branding strategy? Fairly loaded, but what are your thoughts?
I think the most important thing for any brand is what it stands for. We Hollister, I'm talking now, we're a very mission-driven company. We're in business to make life more rewarding for the people that use our products, whether they're clinicians, whether they're users, or whether they're caregivers. And that is absolutely what we live by. So everything we do is driven by that. And I think that's really important. I think the second component is a deep understanding of your customer. In the past, I'd say we made the mistake that we relied too much on subjective feedback. And you know, people move companies and whatever, so someone would leave and the strategy changes and whatever. But under the leadership of our current CEO, he's put in place a very robust system. You know, it's a very objective view. We spend a lot of time and money on market research, engaging with the customer. Our products are different to, you know, if you go in to get a heart valve or something, you're typically not going to ask, well, whose heart valve is that? Is it company A, company B, or whatever? Our products are medical devices that have a big consumer choice in it, because if someone goes in for ostomy surgery and they have to wear a bag, the nurse will typically recommend 2 or 3 products from different manufacturers. The user will pick it, but then after about 6 months out at home, the consumer will, the customer will start Googling and researching themselves and can change. So for us, it's really, really important that we have a very deep understanding of our customer. And then the last thing is just the whole compliance area, making sure that, you know, the products are manufactured well and top quality. We stand by the top quality of our products.
Brilliant. And that comes back to the trust and the whole analogy nearly of the bucket of milk. It takes a long time to fill a bucket, and with one kick it can be gone.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah.
Very good. Well, listen, closing questions, one that's coming in. What advice would you give to someone now who's coming through college and looking at the US? What's the fool's guide from your perspective to, I suppose, having a positive impact on your career and leveraging maybe the network, the Irish network? What would be your thoughts on that for someone who's in their 20s now and heading stateside?
I would think, first of all, be very focused on, not focused, I don't mean that term. Be very clear on what you're looking for. You know, I get people reaching out to me all the time, and I will, in most cases, you know, connect with them and find out. And it's very frustrating when they don't even know what they're looking for, and you're trying to help them. It's a lot more beneficial if you are much clearer on what you're looking for and what you want to get out of the thing. And then networking, network. You know, I always tell they're adult kids now, you know, talk to everyone. My wife Nuala is brilliant at this. She'll talk to anyone. And it's amazing the connections you make. It's just unbelievable. I was at a conference a few years ago, and I was sitting in the foyer, and this old man comes up and he says, "Do you mind if I sit beside you?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." And we started talking. He said, "Oh, you're Ireland," and whatever. He was an American guy. And who did it turn out to be? The original founder of Allergan. I mean, unbelievable connection. Like, and that was just being polite and moving over and chatting to him. So, you know, I would always say, talk, you know, no harm in talking to people. If they don't want to talk back, what have you lost?
Absolutely. And on wrapping this conversation up, I think, as you said, Nuala is a ferocious network. It was a conversation with Nuala in a doorway the evening before we both ended up on stage, if I remember rightly, is how I got to first meet yourselves at the Mayo Society of Greater Cleveland Ball.
Yeah.
And on that note, Seamus, I know that you have to disappear and move on to your next outing. So I genuinely want to thank you for, on behalf of the team here at Portershed and Galway City Innovation District, to thank you for your time and your energy. I know you've your day job, and you're also starting a major road trip back north, heading for Chicago tomorrow. So all I can say is thank you, and wish yourself and Nuala safe journey and great Mayo Day celebrations over the weekend. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a good test day for the marriage. 1,700 miles with the wife, but that should be fun. Look, I just want to say, Kenny, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was surprised when you asked me to do this. I hope people got something out of it. For anyone that's listening, if there's ever anything I can do, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to connect with people and to do whatever I can. I have a great affinity to Mayo, obviously, that's number one, and to Galway and to NUIG. And I wish all the Mayo people that are listening a happy Mayo Day. Thank you all, and have a great day. Lovely. Tom Joyce and Katrina Blewett will be delighted anyways. I see they're on the line anyways. So listen, Tom and everyone say hello. Very good. And listen, the recording of this will be put up on the Portershed website and will be found on YouTube as well. So, Gurmaigat, Seamus, Slán, I'll speak Cormac.
Thank you, Slán. Thank you.
Now, end. And